Welcome back to the latest edition of Reset Now from the Australian Association of National Advertisers and in partnership with Nine and MI3. I'm Liana Dubois, Nine's Director of Powered, our Marketing Solutions Division for Brands, and with me is Paul McIntyre, the Executive Editor of MI3. Paul, do you want to tell us who's joining us in the studio today?
Well, on another cold and bleaky day, Liana, in Sydney, this CMO's got an interesting story. He's gone from chocolate to oil to banks. Go figure that out. Kjetil Undhjem is the new head of brand strategy and marketing at ANZ. He's a 22-year veteran at Mondelez. He's worked on brands like Cadbury and Toblerone. He went to Statoil in the Nordics, and now he's in banking in Australia. Most interesting is that Kjetil started in January for the ANZ. Welcome, Kjetil. How's all that chocolate and oil helping your current strategy in banking, Kjetil? It must be a very different scenario.
Well, yeah. I wanted different, so I sure as hell did get different in every aspect. So I'm very happy that ANZ wanted somebody quite different in terms of their profile, and I couldn't choose a better time in terms of getting in by first starting with all of our sponsorship activities with Australian Open and Mardi Gras, and then to your point, really having to use all my experiences from my old jobs because yes, as you rightly said, I don't have a lot of banking experience, so I couldn't draw on that. So what I've been trying to do is use other experiences I had in terms of, what does the customers look for in terms of a crisis? What do our employees look for in terms of safety and security? And that hasn't really changed depending on what the industry is in. So yeah, it's actually sometimes good not to know what you don't know.
And so when you talk about having a look at it through the customer's lens, what does that actually look like? What does that mean from both a business strategy and also from a marketing point of view?
I think, it's, I said this, you got to do two things when you get into these situations. And that's, I used the analogy of, the safety checks on the airplanes, put on your own oxygen mask before you help others. And it's the same thing here. We really had to focus on our employees first and foremost, because we needed our people to be ready for what we knew was going to be an influx of customers going into hardship. So, and that, being ready with our employees first, and then actually, setting up our programs in terms of helping customers. I think none of us has been through the scale of change that we went through, and especially in terms of the number of customers coming at us. And you just as a little bit of a stat for you, usually before COVID-19, we had on average, 50 hardship calls coming through a week. Now with COVID-19, the first 10 weeks, we had on average 10,000 calls a week. So it's, a massive change. And what we had to do more than anything is thinking about care and empathy for our customers, because we knew we couldn't manage, the call influx, but just trying through our channels, whether it was branch, whether it was contact center, whether it was our .com, or whether it was social media, to try to be there for our customers, but ask them to please be patient with us, and we promise to get back to you. So I say care and empathy, in the interest of humanity, literally, and actually, doing the best by the customers.
Kjetil, that's the doing bit of the organisation. What ANZ was doing during the crisis. What were you saying? What were the communications at the same time?
I think, more than anything in the beginning, as you heard from a lot of other companies, that we just needed to let people know that we were there. We were open for business. We might not have all the branches open, but we had more than enough other channels for you to contact us through to actually get the information you need to actually understand how you can get access to the hardship packages that were available to either home loan owners or business owners. And also, if you wanted to get further access to other aspects of your finances, reach out and talk to us so we can see how we best can help you.
Kjetil, ANZ is pretty well known for its lightheartedness and having a pretty decent sense of humour, which is rare in the banking industry when it comes to your marketing and your advertising communications. But obviously through this period, there has been, as you've talked about, a lot of hardship from individuals and right across the community. So how have you balanced tonally your natural ANZ voice with the scenario that the bank finds itself in now?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. And, we're very, very proud of the tone and character that we have. We called it playfully clever. And, it's something that really we think sets us apart. But even more so, it's actually really true to who we are as a company and the culture we have internally as well. So That's really, the benefit of actually being, true to yourself. Now, of course, sometimes that humor can go a little bit over the top. So it was important for us as we got into COVID-19 to just have a look at those assets that were in market to see whether or not we should tone it down a little bit. And we did that. Most of our ads, we kind of took out some of the most kind of, call it, I wouldn't say extreme humor, but the humor that was more going to the humorous side, that kind of morph to the playful rather than the clever side, and actually make sure that we actually added more aspects in terms of lightheartedness instead of playfulness as our key mantra going into COVID-19. So not losing, again, our DNA and who we are, but actually doing it in a way that was more resonant in terms of what was going on in the marketplace with COVID-19.
You'll have great visibility, Kjetil. There's a lot of talk around what the long-term impacts of consumer behaviour or the changes will be coming out of COVID. You're new to banking, but what are you seeing in terms of the change in customers and prospects in their behaviour towards banking, but also visibility? You'll see what people are spending. And that will be fascinating to see what you think. What's your hunch about how this plays out in the next 6 to 12 months?
I wish I had the crystal ball, because then I could play the stock market, I guess, But there's a couple of things. We've seen, a natural uptake in digital self-service. So the uptake in terms of our internet banking and our app has been, tremendous. We're talking about, if not hundreds, up to 1,000% increases in the usage of the different applications on our online platforms. So that's kind of something I definitely expect to continue to go on, and that also gives people, I think, better access to their money. And I think, if anything, people have actually started to pay more attention to their money. And we talked a lot about financial well-being going into COVID-19 as part of our key program, and I think that's actually really resonates well. And I think our digital applications actually enables that better for you to actually own your own control of your finances, and use us where you really need help. In terms of the real change, like I said, if you look at all the applications we have online, most of them have gone up. There's one application that's gone down, and that's international travel notification, which you can put into your bank. That's gone down 98%. So right. I hope for Qantas and Virgin and for the tourism industry that that's something that truly is going to pick up, because personally, I really am roaring to get moving again and get out and see and explore things.
Aren't we all?
There must be enormous implications, though, when you talk about that digital take-up for the retail network and branches then, Kjetil. What happens there?
Well, we reallocated a lot of our personnel into helping in our contact centers with the influx of hardship calls that we have, because there's a lot of the competences and the skill sets in the branches actually are linked into managing those calls. We had to do a little bit of reskilling and upskilling to manage that. But I think that's clear that, maybe going forward, actually also the branches will be more looked at as more as a financial advisor or a financial consultant to some sense, rather than just a place where you go and take out money, because less and less people will manage cash going forward. So I think it fits well into, our promise in terms of actually being a bank that really focuses on financial well-being and helping, Australians, both in communities and the individuals, thrive and be on top of their money.
Kjetil, you're an FMCG vet. Can you talk to us a little? And you've talked about, customer centricity being really important when you are, transitioning out of FMCG, oil, and into banking. But what are some of the other transferable skills or some of the other transferable perspectives that you bring from your FMCG background into the banking field?
I think one thing I've really been asked to focus a lot on, which I think is as transferable but needs to be ingrained more, is really truly add commerciality into marketing. Really actually not be so focused only on the internal marketing metrics, but actually link it back into market share, into revenue, into profitability. So actually tie it really clearly back into the P&L. As an FMCG marketeer, you own the P&L, so it's such an ingrained part of you, so it's so natural. But coming into a place like this, actually it needs a bit more work. But I'm passionate about that part of marketing, and that's showing that it really drives results.
Great point. The other thing, Kjetil, is loyalty. You talked earlier about how you think customer loyalty will decline, I guess, with all the banks, with the banking sector. Will there be more movement? What do you mean by that? And explain.
Well, I think, it's coming new into banking. And one thing I did, see right away, which was quite new to me, was, the influx of new banks, the neobanks, but also in terms of how, the regional banks and more specialist banks are upping their games, both in terms of what they're offering, but also their marketing. So, and I love a good fight in terms of, market share and, proving ourselves. And, I'm best when I'm comfortable being uncomfortable. So actually taking that also from an FMCG perspective and actually setting that up in terms of being much more focused again on the customers, so really, really having added value products and services, and also having a competitive edge to it, and then tying it up with great creative, something we just need to do. And I think it challenges us every day in terms of be better. So I love competitors. It's the best part of being in business.
The product suite, the big banks are very focused on home loans. Something changes there too, though. Well, for the ANZ, it'll change. It'll broaden out. Portfolio management, I think you talk about.
Yeah, I think one thing I loved about working in FMCG is portfolio management overall, and also in innovation funnel involvement. And we talk a lot about two aspects of innovation. One is asset out, which is kind of loose, looking at what you have and how do you repackage and make it better. And then you have breakthrough innovation, which is kind of the next generation in terms of what you can offer in terms of financial product services into the market. And also then part of that, I think, is the non-transferable skill. It's actually also looking much more directed at segmentation. I think, needs to be a lot of work being done on segmentation to actually be a bit more pointed. Because I do think, the marketing mix and also the portfolio mix needs to be adapted to the different customer segments, which also goes through, the customer journey in terms of life cycle, which is really, really different for banking, I would say, than in what I've been seeing in FMCG. So I got plenty to learn.
Well, the other thing that'll be new to you as well is that post-Royal Commission, there's a lot of lawyers and risk people managing banks, full stop, what product is and policy and communications. How are you coping with that? There's a few reins on you, I'd imagine.
You'd be surprised, actually, how commercial they are. And I'm really, really impressed in terms of how they can balance whether you're legal or whether you're risk, in terms of balancing both aspects and actually trying to do good first by the customer and then by the bank. So I think I haven't had any issues at all. And again, I learned a lot in terms of how to interpret, what came out of the Royal Commission. And, I got 3 values, and my second value is about courage. So, and that's all about, pushing boundaries and actually trying to do things that nobody else has done before. So I do find myself quite frequently in meetings with those 2 functions as I try to come up with my ideas.
And tell us, Kjetil, what are you seeing from a behavioural point of view? What's the data kind of showing you in terms of how your customers might be thinking, kind of as we come out of COVID-19, how they might be thinking about the requirements of saving or spending, and what the broader economic impact is going to be for your customer base?
There's a couple of things. I think we said we're going through 3 phases. One is relief, and the second is recovery, and the third is rebound. And we still have customers who still are in relief, and we are going through and getting into relief. Actually, we do have quite a few customers, the majority who's being in rebound. You got through the first phase, you understand what the hardship package looks like, you got clarity in terms of what the payment plan looks like. And then we also have certain people who are starting to get back into the rebound. So people are at different stages, and they do require and think differently about it. I think if anything, people have been much more careful in terms of how they manage their money. So I think again, this is a personal bet that I think people will spend more going forward, coming out of this, because now that they've been through a rainy day, I think people will be wanting to be having a bit more, call it a bit of a buffer in terms of what else can happen going forward, and being ready for a rainy day. So we say don't spend more than you earn. It's kind of basic principles. Sounds very obvious, but it's important to actually put that front and center as you come out of this and think through actually how you're going to go and plan your finances going forward.
I got a final question for you from me, Kjetil, which is you've been across Europe, you've been in the Scandinavian markets, they're quite creative markets, and now you've been in Australia for a couple of years. What do you make of the Australian marketing sector, what goes on in media, and generally Australia in that context versus Europe and the Nordics?
Well, the first time when I came here the first time in 2014, my wife and I said the same thing. It's funny how every ad seemed to have the word easy in it. So it seems that, what Australians aspire to is have their lives being very easy. Many other countries, actually, they want their lives to be quite complicated, quite rich and quite difficult.
That's very European, Kjetil.
It is, so that's kind of one of, you pick up on these small subtleties, it stands out. I do find advertising being more American, a little bit, it screams a lot, a fair bit of it. So I recognize more of the Americanness than the Britishness. So I do that's why I like, with ANZ, like I said, we try to be a bit clever in terms of how we look at our ads, and hopefully that, will resonate well with our customer base as well. So, but again, I got plenty to learn.
Kjetil, you talked a little bit earlier about courage, and I happen to know that things like creative curiosity and similar terms are important to you. Talk to us about what courage and pushing the boundaries means to you as a marketer, and what your plan, what it means for ANZ, for you as their newest marketer.
Well, most of my team have heard me say, probably 100 times. Up until now is, we want to outsmart, we not outspend our competitors. And that's not because it's about the money. It's actually about how you think about it. And in order to do that, you need a lot of curiosity. Curiosity should feed your creativity. But a lot of people stop there. And that's why courage is important, because courage to me is about not just curiosity and creativity, because that can be very similar to what is. I really want to break the ground and do something that's never been done. And I want to do it, whether it's across product, whether it's across media, whether it's across creativity, whether it's across channel, even across pricing. I want to try to find things that nobody else has done within the category to kind of reset the category. So that's my ambition, and I kind of feed off that. And that's my mantra for ANZ, and hoping doing that will drive stronger commercial results and happy customers.
Well, I've got to be looking forward to that from a bank. That's good news, Kjetil.
No worries.
Absolutely, game on. Kjetil, thank you so much for your time today. I think you've talked about some really important messages and some really interesting ones. I really like the way that you frame up customer centricity in terms of being the customer. I think it's really important. You've maintained ANZ's brand DNA through this crisis, and yet, been able to just soften your language a little bit more, or make it a little bit more match fit for the time, I suppose, and for the way that the community is feeling. You talk a lot about your kind of defence strategy when it comes to loyalty being tested and how important that is, and obviously brand switching on the rise as we all come out the other side of COVID-19. But on behalf of Paul and I, thank you so very much for your time today. Paul, great to be with you again. This has been Reset Now, and we'll see you again next week.